Welcome to today's event, De-escalating difficult COVID-19 customer behaviors with Andrew Sanderbeck. Andrew has been developing and conducting training programs for organizations for more than 15 years. He's presented web-based, online, and face-to-face sessions on management, leadership, customer service, and communication skills in the US and numerous countries around the world. And of course, you probably also know Andrew as the guru of PCI webinars, which we offer to our SWAN members regularly. I'm Cassandra, CE coordinator here at SWAN Libraries, and I'll be your host for today. Hope everybody can see and hear okay. I see folks coming in and saying hi on the chat, and we are so excited to get started. So if you are ready, Andrew?
We are ready, Cassandra. Thanks
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Hey, do me a favor in the chat area. Just let me know if you are hearing me okay and that the volume is coming in good. I appreciate that some of you are also typing in where you're from and some other comments there. So thank you for doing that. I really enjoy a very interactive program and hope you do as well. And look forward to hearing some of the things that are going on in your world. And I'll certainly be sharing some of the things that are happening with my library here. I am chairman of our board of trustees in Haywood County. We are a smaller county. For those of you that have been to North Carolina and you've been to Asheville specifically, we're about 30 minutes to the west and a little bit south of Asheville. We are in the mountains in Haywood County, and we're a smallish county. Our library system has 4 branches, and currently we are only offering curbside service. We have a hope one day of getting into phase 1, but we are a popular tourist destination, and unfortunately, because of that, our COVID cases are increasing at this time. And we are a county-run system. And the county has said that our buildings will not be open until at least August 17th. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And, you know, we're making the best out of a good situation. How's that? So what are we going to talk about today? Well, let's start off with some customer de-escalation techniques. In the description, I promised 8. And so 8 will be the number that I will go over. Some of these are going to be ones that you know, and you know, I'm not too worried about that. I think we need to look at how you might be able to apply these 8 to what you're doing in your library. And you know, like I said, you've probably already been doing some of these things. As it is. Cassandra, just let you know that my screen has frozen and I am right now unable to advance the slides. After we get into the de-escalation techniques, I want to talk with you about specific verbiage that I think that you'll find very helpful in using with the customers, and that verbiage is going to include different resources that I like. And after the program, you will get a PDF of the slides. You will get my resource page. And then also, I do have a form for you guys to use when it comes to reporting incidences. And if you would share over in that chat area, do you have an incident form that you are currently using? And I'll look for your answer there. I just got a message that my PowerPoint is not operating properly, so it's going to shut it down, and I'm going to open it up again, and we'll try it again and see what happens. But do you have an incident report form that you are currently using? And please share what that may look like, or, you know, how, if you are using it. We admit here, even in our own county, that that we probably could be doing a better job of using our form. Actually, it's something we're looking at revamping The one I'm sharing with you is from Conneaut Public Library, and they are located in Ohio. And I liked it because it's very basic and very simple, and I hope that you will find that to be of value, either in just reviewing yours or looking at what you may be able to do in updating it. And I've got some questions here or some comments on incident reports. And this one, there's a comment here about accidents. And this one is made for accidents, but also if we do have some different things that are going on with customer behaviors, that we would take a look at that with that. And then we've got a comment here about security. And then the comment also about could be general behavior type of form as well. Well, this is kind of interesting. The PowerPoint is really taking its time opening. I'm wondering if it's having trouble with the platform here that we're using. But while we are doing that, let's go ahead and so I talked about and really when I was telling you about verbiage, I was looking at boundaries, and I was looking also at what I call benefit statements, and we will get into that in a little bit. So specific COVID behaviors that I'd like us to address in this program are listed on the screen here. And give me an idea what's going on in your world. Are you guys open? Are you having issues with people with masks or not wanting to social distance? And at what phase of opening are you? Are some of you still on curbside? Are some of you allowing patrons into your building? And exactly just how is that going? We are having issues here with people that are upset that we won't bring items to their car. And we've had to deal with some other patron behaviors, even though we're not allowing people in the door. We have looked at opening the library by appointment for people that may want to use our computers, the public computers, or something along that line. We are still not ready to go there, though, I must tell you. And so when we're looking at these behaviors, just a reminder that anyone that intentionally spits on someone, that is, believe it or not, a felony. And that would be a police call right away. So consider that. We've had incidences in libraries across the country that I've been reading about where people have gone in and coughed on employees and coughed on customers, coughed on computers, did different things like that where they've had to shut down libraries. So really kind of interesting, some of the behaviors that we're seeing. And I want to talk a little bit kind of about my theory why we may be seeing this. All right, got comments coming in here. We're going to open on August 17th. We're open 6 days a week. We still offer curbside, but do have limited services. People have been good about wearing masks, and you offer free masks. Good. People have been understanding. Been open since June 17th. Most are willing to wear a mask. Fully open with restrictions in place. Issues with mask over mouth only. Issues with patrons saying they can't wear a mask. Yes. It's really making things interesting. And of course, not interested in a reasonable accommodation. We have a lot of issues with people not keeping their masks over their nose. And yes, we have to keep reminding them. And I'll tell you, that kind of puts us into babysitting mode, which I'm just not into. Is public urination on the outside library grounds a felony? I really have no idea. And this is a question in the chat area. I would look at your state law on that. I don't know if it's a felony. To me, that feels like a misdemeanor. But that would be something I would check into if you've got that going on. And if you do, I'm sorry to hear that. We actually had an issue of someone coming in and peeing on our furniture, which was a whole other disaster. And that person was permanently banned, as you may guess. All right, customer service 19, COVID-19 things. So one of the things that we've really noticed is that initially when patrons were coming to us for curbside service, they still wanted the library to represent really the way things used to be. And I've got some different things I'm going to share with you. One is from a library in Florida that they opened in early June, and this was one of the big things that they saw, that they were looking for some sense of normalcy. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the library. We are having to adapt for safety and for other things like that. The way that we used to do things just cannot be anymore. And not only is that true for the patrons, but I really want to emphasize here that this is the case for you as well. And I see Amanda's comment here about got threatened to be stabbed by a patron that refused to keep his mask on. That's called the cops now, as far as that goes. And I would hope that you had some video of this person or something to make sure that if they come back in, that they're trespassed. So one of the things that I want to point out in this program is that we're here to talk about customers, and we also need to look at ourselves. And this is a real common complaint that I'm hearing from libraries that are open. And that is that staff is acting and doing their duties the way that we did it before the pandemic. So they are finding themselves getting into situations like I have in the picture here, where they are not social distancing from the patrons. And what I want to remind you here is what I've got down at the bottom, which is it's extremely important that we model the behaviors that we want from our customers. And this is going to be hard because we are not used to distancing from our customers. Now, you can do that through different means. Obviously, our service desks, but we have tables, we have book carts, we have different things like that. And the other thing that I'm going to ask you to do as an entire staff is to call each other out. If you see that Andrew is way too close to that patron, then I want you to say to me, hey, Andrew, remember physical distancing. I know this is going to bring challenge, and I know it's going to take some time for us to adapt. Yet it's really important, because if the customer sees us not doing these things, then what do you think the message is that we're giving to the customer? A lot of comments going on here in the chat area about the masks and different issues, people being argumentative. And a comment here, if anything, I'm frustrated by those who have a mask but don't use it correctly. I know it's like, well, why bother? I see people that they're wearing their mask down on their chin, and I'm like, really? All right, so what we're seeing libraries do right now, certainly we're requiring in some states that customers wear a mask. We are enforcing social distancing. I'm aware of some libraries that are doing temperature checks at the door before people get in at all. Certainly, we're limiting capacity. I know some libraries that have adapted more of a grab and go type of an opening phase where people are given 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I know one library that's at 15% capacity. And so we have staff at the door that is keeping count, and then also letting people know, that you may not be able to come in right now, and here's why. And then limiting services and phased reopenings. Certainly, we've got actually a 4-phase approach here in Haywood County on what we're going to do. I see a question here. What should you do about patrons who keep coming even closer when you step away or ask for distance? Often they're hard of hearing. What you're going to need to do is set a boundary. And I understand that they may be hard of hearing. One of the things that I have for you in the resources is a video on how to communicate more effectively when wearing a mask. But the idea here is that you are going to need to set the boundary, and you're going to need to say, hey, I need to stay X amount of feet away from you, and you may want to talk louder, or you may want to find another way of doing it. And a comment here about we've limited capacity but haven't ever hit the max. I have not really found a lot of libraries that have hit that max yet, but I know some that have. And usually it was early on once the library had reopened. A lot of times I was hearing the first couple of weeks were extremely busy, and then it kind of tapered off. So for those of you that are getting ready to open, that may be something to consider with that. All right, a quote here that I really found quite powerful. And it reinforces something that I believe, which is people don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to be told what to do. I'm sure you probably don't want to be told what to do either. So I just love this reminder. It's giving people information, and then with the goal that they are going to make the best decisions to keep themselves, their loved ones safe. And they're going to look at how they're going to go about and do that. It's very interesting here that we do have a certain amount of the population that believes COVID is a hoax, that they don't believe that it's real, that that really kind of makes for an interesting conversation. And then you have other people who are afraid to go out their doors. So people are going to make decisions, but once again, I really like this quote about we need to just make sure we're giving them information. And there's going to be a key word you're going to hear from me today, and it is consistency. We need to be consistent in the messages that we're delivering. All right, let's have a little bit of fun. This is from Volusia County in Florida, and I've been doing some work with them, and they reopened on June 1st. This is the signage that they put up in the building, that they put up on their website to let people know what they could expect. So one of the things that they talked about was minimizing S&S. So what I'd like you to do in the chat area is to give me your guess on what you think S&S is. So the goal of these signs would be to minimize S and S. So what do you think S&S is? So go ahead and give it a shout out in that chat area, in the comment area, and let me know what your guess might be. And I'm seeing comments here. You guys are talking about meeting room access. We have no intention of opening our meeting rooms until phase 4. The only meetings I'm aware of that are going on in the meeting room are our board meetings. Outside of that, there's no access on that. So it's hard for our patrons. It's hard for our community because they get a lot of use. And we have a large kind of auditorium style room in our main branch, and then we also have almost like a boardroom set up, but they're constantly booked. All right, looking at some of your guesses here. We want to minimize socializing and sneezing. I love that. Spread, yeah, true. We would want to minimize spread. We want to minimize staying and socializing. Signs and symptoms. Okay. The two I had in mind were shock and surprise. shock and surprise. I don't want the patron to come in and be surprised about wearing masks. I don't sleaze and smut. Sarcasm's one of my favorites, by the way. But yes, so we want to give them as much information so that we minimize their shock and surprise when they are coming back to be with us, and hopefully interacting with us in a good way. So to do that, I'll go back to this again. We need to look at consistent responses, because I believe we get in a ton of trouble when we are inconsistent. When one employee says something, another staff member says something else, and our patron is confused. Now, sometimes I acknowledge the patron hears what they want to hear. I'm good with that. I'm saying let's put our focus on what is it that we need to tell them, what is that message we're going to put out there, what's it look like, what's it sound like, how are we going to do it? Because this is going to be really key moving forward. So I mentioned some different training tools for you. So please check these out. The Wisconsin Valley Library System puts out their digital bites on many topics. But two of them I like a lot are Unpleasant Conversations, and the other one has to do with how to communicate when wearing a mask. And then Tips for Dealing with Angry Patrons comes from Miss Hirsch. I can't believe I forgot her first name. And she does a lot of videos, and I thought this was really good with reminders for us when we're reopening. Just things to remember when we are dealing with these angry and difficult people. And the other thing I'm going to focus on, and you'll hear this multiple times today, is the need to focus on why in your training. So not just what we're going to say, not just how we're going to say it, but why. And why is critical. And if you have not seen Simon Sinek's video on how great leaders inspire action, it's a good one. And what I've got down in the bottom right box there is what he calls the golden circle. And he talks about acting, thinking, and communicating from the inside out. And the beauty of it is that almost every business, most organizations do the exact opposite. They focus on what, they talk a little bit about how, but they really don't get into why. And he has a saying that I love, which says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And please understand that the word buy does not mean purchase. It means connect, it means buy in, it means that they create loyalty, it means that they become very comfortable, it means they want to do business with you. So I'm focusing now on training. Make sure that when we're talking about the messages that we're going to deliver, that we certainly cover not just what, not just how, which could get into tone of voice and different things like that, but also why. Because with why, we get buy-in. All right, very good. And thanks to Cassandra, who's posting different links there for you guys in that comments area. All right, let's get into these de-escalation techniques. This should not be a surprise. Number one is you guys have prepared in advance. I noticed several of you were saying that you were going to be opening here at a future date in August. Well, this is especially for you, but for those of you that are already open, this is an opportunity for you guys to step back and say, have we done this? Have we done it well? I don't want staff winging it, especially when you come into a difficult customer. So we need to practice responding to the different situations. I'm not a huge fan of scripts if it makes you sound like a robot. If it sounds natural, then I'm all in for scripts because I think they can give us guidance on how to respond. But a lot of times it's which no customer wants to hear. And then I put the little triangle down at the bottom because I believe we need to have conversations. We have staff here in Haywood County that are truly scared of when we open our doors because they are going to be interacting with the public. And you know what? We don't know who's asymptomatic. We don't, I'm sure we're going to have patrons who, may have tested positive that are out and about in public. And this is truly a concern. And so we need to really talk about how we are going to make and have a safe working environment. So please put that into the conversations that you guys are going to have in training. And specifically, when I look at verbiage that you want to create for COVID, I really think that that we need to look at the mask issue, the social distancing issue. We need to look at threats. As I mentioned, spitting to me is a no-brainer. By the way, we don't have security in our libraries, so we're calling the police. And then you're going to have people that want to argue. Well, I don't think masks are right. I don't think this social distancing thing is a bunch of crap. Okay, well, they can be right, but you know what? Those are the rules. And we're going to expect you to follow the rules, or we may have to ask you to leave. So these are things specifically that I want you guys to really look at, how you're going to handle these things. What's the verbiage? How many warnings? All the different things that are going to need to go on with that. Here is again, consistent responses are going to help to de-escalate situations. All right, my next one has to do with using the customer's name because we've got tons of research here that shows that using their name can help to de-escalate a situation. And I know that I have not been the most comfortable in asking for someone's name. One of the things here, being in a small town of 10,000 and in a smallish county, is that actually we know a lot of the names of the patrons that are coming in. So we kind of have an advantage maybe over some of the bigger library systems. But if you don't know their name, then you're going to need to get comfortable with asking the question. So to serve you better, may I ask what your name is? Could you please tell me your name? Would you mind telling me your name? Your name. And then when you have that, Mr. James, I understand that you don't want to wear a mask in the library. Unfortunately, this has been handed down by the county. And we are part of the county system. So anyone that is in our building must wear a mask. I understand that you may have a medical concern with wearing a mask, in which case I would just, let you know that we will do our best to serve you, but we cannot let you in the building. And then we'll see how Mr. James responds to that. Oh, one thing on that, be careful not to use the name too many times. I've had people ask my name and they've used Mr. Sanderbeck like 4 times in 2 minutes. And I'm like, stop. It's too much. All right, here I want you to look at another de-escalation technique having to do with when people are in emotion, when they're complaining, when they're being difficult, many times they're not logical. And this can make it really difficult for us, but I also look at it as an opportunity to kind of play detective. Now, in some cases, we did let them down, and I acknowledge that. Maybe there was an expectation they had, and note, I said, realistic or not, for a product or a service that our library was offering that we didn't meet that. I get it. A lot of times, though, their emotion and their different things that are going on really don't have anything to do with us, certainly not with you individually. And that's where they're just upset with what's going on. And that's where I think we need to play that detective. And so one of our tools is to be patient. It's to ask questions. It's to seek clarity. So that once we do find that they come out of that emotion, that maybe they are in more of a cognitive place, and we can make sure that we are addressing their need. Next one, if you've attended any of my programs, you know that I am a huge can we say huge, fan of Dr. Stephen Covey, and especially the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In that common area, just give me a yes or no if you have read the book or listened to the audio program, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm always kind of interested to see how people have connected with this. And if you have not read the book, I would ask that you put it on your list. It is certainly in my resource guide, and along with other books that I think are going to be helpful for you. So habit number 5 from Covey is just a gem. And here a de-escalation technique is to listen without interruption. And I can tell you that an escalation technique would be to interrupt people, because that will do it almost every time. So here, we need to really understand the importance of listening. And Covey tells us in habit number 5 that most people do not listen to understand, that they tend to listen to respond, or they tend, are you ready, to listen to judge. And then once you've made a judgment, well, you're probably not really active listening unless you agree with them. So what I love about habit number 5 is that you can seek first to understand someone. The goal is that when you do that, they will give you that space in return. They may or they may not. But what I love is that I can seek first to understand someone without agreeing with them. This one, gang, is not only good for the library, but this one is good in life. You've got family, you've got friends, you've got interactions outside of the workplace where you've got people that, they've got opinions, they've got beliefs. And okay, I may not agree with you, but I can build the relationship by just giving that space of understanding where you're coming from. And as I said, maybe on the flip side of that, they may give me the space to share what I believe, they may not. But that's not really important. What's important is that we gave them that space. And I see we've kind of got a mix of no's and yeses there on Covey's book. I go back and revisit that a couple times a year. And I normally just usually do what I call chapter diving, where I don't do the whole book, but I just turn to pages and look at it and say, isn't that interesting? Did you ever notice that when you go back to read a book and you've read the book before and you look at it and you're like, man, I don't remember that? Well, do you know what happened? What happened is the book didn't change, you changed. And because you changed, you now may be reading this with a totally different perspective. And something that didn't connect with you early on, all of a sudden now you're reading it and you're like, wow, isn't that interesting? My favorite example of that is actually to go to a movie with friends, whenever that day happens again, and come out and discuss the movie. I can't believe how many times I've done that. And it's like, 4 people went to see a movie and 4 people went to see a different movie. Because we all came out with different perspectives. All right, on we go. Another de-escalation technique is to get them to say yes. So get to yes is really a powerful technique. And I'll highlight here the customer isn't always right. I think that's a bunch of crap. Because customers lie, customers cheat, customers manipulate. Those aren't right behaviors. I grew up in working in retail. I was a retail manager. By the way, let me know if you worked in retail over in that comment area as well. And, the philosophy of the customer is always right was shoved down my throat. And I could never buy it. I would say to my boss, to, district manager, to corporate, I'm like, this behavior is not right. So I became much more comfortable with the customer is the customer. And what I find with that is then I can really decide, is this a customer that I think we should keep in our library? Because not every customer is someone I want to keep. All right, so back to yes. So we can ask questions, and in the book Getting to Yes, they talk about starting with small yeses. And then that can get you to de-escalating as you get to the bigger yeses. So, masks are a very controversial subject. Would you agree? Would you like to discuss the mask policy with the manager? Safety is very important for you and our staff. Do you understand our concern? Great. Fast food. There were two promises I made in life to myself. One was I would never work in fast food, and the other one was that I would never work in a shoe store. Isn't that weird? I could never get comfortable being at somebody's feet, and I don't know why. 10 years at Circuit City. Wow. Ran a small business. Yeah, dealt with all kind of folks. I bet you did. So look at these small yeses. So look at your verbiage as you're diagnosing what's going on with the customer. Then look at what are some questions you can ask to start to get to yes. This is a big one for me, huge one for me. And that is, don't tell me what you can't do. Because quite frankly, I don't care. And you know what? I also don't really care about how it all went wrong. I don't. What I want you to do is fix my problem. And a shout out to Verizon for my wireless plan, because that's really all we can use here in the mountains, who absolutely stink at this. They want to tell me all the time what they can't do. And I'm just like, I don't care. Tell me what you can do. Because telling me what you can't do is just making me more unhappy. So I put in some verbiage there. If you'd like to fill out, there's some bad verbiage. If you'd like to take a moment to complete our complaint form about the public computers not being available, this will expedite a response to our manager. I can't leave that, guys. That drives me crazy. Ooh, no. Okay. And then what will I do? What I will do, Miss Foster, is take your name, da-da-da-da. So once again, focusing on what I can do, even though it may not be what the customer wants. I got a comment here about loving the concept of getting to yes without giving in. And I agree, it does require some creative thinking, which to me is fun. To me, customer service is a dance because it's situational. And every situation is different. And even though I may have heard the same thing 5 times that day, it's still unique to the customer, and it's still different to them. And sometimes it's hard to keep it unique, but I think that's a goal. All right, slow down, suspend judgment. You are going to see weird or irrational behavior. You are. Let's just kind of call it for what it is. And the recommendation here is that, and I'll share with you what we learned at Denver Public Library. In Denver Public Library, they talked about when you have someone acting out in front of you, that if you are to judge that person, you're likely going to escalate. And so instead of looking at someone and saying, well, what's wrong with them? Why are they doing that? That's judging. So instead, we were taught to look at it differently. So instead of saying what's wrong with that person, it's to look at them and to say, gosh, I wonder what happened to them. I wonder what happened to them that got them to where they are today. Now, we're never going to know the answer, or most likely we aren't going to know the answer to that question, but I hope you see that it's just a different approach. And it's less judgmental, and it's actually more empathetic. So, there are people that believe that COVID is a hoax, and they believe that you are part of the conspiracy. Okay, well, I could look at them and say, and you're out of your mind. But tell me where that conversation's going. So you know what? That's what they believe. And if that's what they believe, I get it. And if you want to use the library, then this is what you're going to need to do. I'll get into more of that verbiage in a little bit. I love the book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements. If you've not read that book, would you please put it on your list? It's on the resource list that you'll get after the program. So the reminder here is how to not take things personally, and that is one of his four agreements. And in the book, I love how he talks about that if you have someone who is cursing at you, they're name calling you, they're telling you that, you don't know how to do your job, that, they could do the job better, to understand that what they're doing is they're spewing their poison. And you are in control of how you respond to their behavior. And certainly how you respond or react is going to affect whether the situation is going to escalate or not. So if you take the bait and you start arguing with them, well, I can kind of guess where that's going. But the idea here and what Ruiz talks about is don't eat the poison. It's not yours. It's theirs. So if somebody comes in and they tell you that you're a fool and you're an idiot for believing all this COVID stuff and I ain't wearing no mask and you can't don't eat the poison. That's their stuff. This has been so helpful to me because for years I would eat the poison. Especially if someone would say, you're all stupid here. Oh boy. That was a buzzword for me. So get to know the buzzwords. And once again, this is good stuff for not only at work, but outside of work. When do you feel your buttons are being pressed? And understand that you have the choice not to react to the button. I was having a conversation with a library in Virginia and talking with a manager there. And we were talking about a situation that had occurred with a colleague outside of the library that just sent a scathing email. And the person was saying to me, Andrew, you teach not taking things personally. She said, but this one, it really hurts. This is a friend of mine. This is, someone that I respect a lot. And I said, what I hear is, you're not taking it personally, but, you kind of are taking it professionally. And I think it's okay just to acknowledge that. I think it's okay to say, gosh, that one kind of hurts. That was a friend of mine, or that's someone that I really respect. And, and this is the behavior that they're showing. Now, eventually, again, you're going to need to let it go. But I'm not sure that it's an effective approach just to say, I'm not going to take that personally. Well, you know what? Maybe I am for a little bit. Or in this case, maybe I'm taking it professionally. So I thought that was really interesting. And once again, yes, still at the end, you're going to need to let it go and move on. Okay, I think I've got one or two left here on these de-escalation techniques. So another one is silence and giving the customer time to make their decision. So if you tell them that you understand that they are upset about whatever it is that they're upset about, and you give them choices or you give them possible solutions, then I'm going to challenge you to get more comfortable with silence. I have been told multiple times that in my programs that I am the king of the pregnant pause. I never really knew that I did that, but I do it kind of, I guess with my gut, because I give you guys time to think. I give you time to reflect on different information that I'm sharing. And I find that this can be so helpful in customer service. So would you like me to do X or would you like me to do Y? What do you think will be best for you? And then pause. I do an 8-second count in my head. Sometimes it doesn't go to 8, and sometimes it goes a little bit longer because I'm just allowing the customer time to think. So this may be another one of those to give a try. This I thought was so good, and I have the link to the article in your resource page. This was an article on BBC.com, which is where I tend to get my news. I don't like to read the stuff in the US. And they had an article about decision fatigue. And the more that I read this article, the more I thought they were onto something. And they were talking about that because we don't have our routines, we don't have, necessarily we can't do the things that we're used to doing in habit, that it's requiring us to make substantially more decisions each day. And that it truly is taking a toll on our mental well-being. And I think this is something we need to acknowledge with our patrons. Their mental well-being is stretched. And so what we're finding is many people are reacting with frustration and anger on things that we just wouldn't expect. And, then a lot of times they just shut down. So look at yourself here, because there are days I feel this. There are days I just say to my wife, I just say to some of my coworkers, I'm like, I'm done. I just can't. And it's been a really interesting adjustment with so much uncertainty and so many unknowns in what's going on. So I've got another kind of fill in the blank here. Give me your guess. And once again, I'll look for your answer in the comments area. So the quote here is, the greater the pain, the smaller the customer's blank will be. And the clue that I'm going to give you is the horse. So once again, in the comment area, let me see what you come up with. The greater the pain, the smaller the customer's blank will be. And let's see what you come up with for your answers there. And I'm just noticing our time and noticing that I may be taking you a few minutes over. So we'll see what your answers are. So what is the fill in the blank? The greater the pain, the smaller the customer's blank will be. Bill says this one's too easy. Trigger, thank you. Yes, the horse's name is Trigger. And what I'm looking for is that the customer's trigger could be a lot smaller. Although saddle was an interesting answer. All right, questions to consider that you guys are going to need to be ready to address. How will a staff member address a customer that refuses to wear a mask? Or they wear the mask into your library and then put it on their chin? How is management going to address customers that refuse to socially distance? And how's your organization going to address a user that intentionally or unintentionally spits or coughs when they're coming into your library? These are not easy questions, but these are things that we need to have straightened out before we look at opening our doors. Remember what I said earlier about consistency, because consistency is going to be the key. And then we got this question, which I don't like. I don't like this at all. But are the employees expected to be the mask police? Is that what the expectation is going to be in your library? And if it is, I'm expecting you're going to run into threats. You're going to run into a lot of difficult behavior. And I can't give you a right or wrong answer here. You're going to have to decide what to do. I can tell you here in North Carolina that the police are not responding to mask issues. They've been told not to. And I like Jennifer's comment there about going back to the code of conduct. Yes. I would have the code of conduct available at the desk, as well as if you're using signage talking about masks and different things like that. Should we still have these discussions with people not wearing masks? That's the question. How are you going to handle people not wearing masks? Are you just going to allow them in? Once again, I can't give you that answer. That's a decision your library is going to have to make. And I will tell you, in Haywood County, that's still a conversation we're having. How is it that we're going to handle that? Because it certainly could put staff in physical jeopardy. The flip side is, if no one addresses masks, then what are we doing? So really interesting. And it's something that we're going to have to work out going forward. And then I want you to have conversations about people that are just non-compliant. Other unwanted behaviors that may be going on. And threats, to me, I am, my staff is too important. I don't want them to accept any threats. You know, how people will like to say, well, I pay your salary. And, you know, there are some threats that I may just tend to ignore. But not if they say, you know, well, I should just come down there and, you know, no, not acceptable. And you guys need to have a plan on how you're going to handle threatening behavior. All right, let's talk about boundaries, because I think they're important. And I want to start off with this. Remember that you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. So if you allow people to threaten you, you allow people to verbally abuse you, then you've told them and you've told the other people that are watching that it's okay. I would point them to the signage and say it's the library policy. We just have to abide by them if you're wanting to use the service or receive service. Yeah, and I do like going back to our customer code of conduct. I just think that if we are going to do these things, that we better have management involved, because these situations quite likely are going to escalate. So I like Kim saying, you know what, we handle non-compliant customers and threats just like any other behavior: warning, ban, legal trespass. Good for you guys. Okay, and then speaking of warnings, how many warnings do you give? I think is a conversation that needs to be had. All right, let me give you some verbiage that I love. From Dr. Steve Albrecht, who has a great book on library security and communication. This is a choice statement, and I love it. And he says, if you'd like to stay in the library, you'll need to do blank. So if you'd like to stay in the library, you will need to stay 6 feet apart. This one really resonates with me because I love the idea of giving people a choice. If they choose not to stay 6 feet apart, then they've made their choice. And that choice is they've made the choice not to stay in the library. You could say, if you'd like to stay in the library, you'll need to wear your mask. If they choose not to wear the mask, then they have made their choice. If you'd like to stay in the library, if you'd like to stay in the computer lab, you'll need to put away your food and your drink. If they don't do that, they've made their choice. And this is not where you go back and ask them again and again and again. What I love about this statement is I don't have to babysit. They get to make the choice. And then the black belt librarian, excuse me, his statement is that behavior is not allowed in the library, and you would identify specifically what that behavior is. So these are boundary statements. Now, other things that I like which are not quite as assertive, but they could work, are these techniques. So one I like is the question technique. The question technique is what I call benefit of the doubt. So did you know that the library is enforcing social distancing for the safety of others? Did you know food and drink are not allowed? Did you know that we're only operating at 15% capacity? Did you know that we're only doing grab and go and we need our patrons to leave after 10 minutes? So I like that one a lot. Did you know? I've used, did you know you're yelling at me? Now, that's worked and it's not worked. I've had some patrons say, yeah, because I'm upset. And I've had some say, I'm sorry. All right, the next technique is because. So once again, don't stop at just telling me what the rules are. Give me the why. So food and drink are not allowed in the public computers because of damage to the keyboards, damage to the computers, etc. And then the other one I really love is, unfortunately, I am not a fan of sorry. Because you know what? I'm not sorry that you have to wear a mask. I'm not sorry that the library is trying to protect staff with masks and social distancing. So unfortunately, because it is unfortunate for them, and probably unfortunate for me, because I'm having to have this conversation, but unfortunately, you cannot stay in the library more than 10 minutes. But I'm not sorry about that. So I hope you guys see that difference. That's one I love. I'm a big fan of unfortunately, and I'm a big fan of because. So benefit statements, I challenge you to lead with benefit. So what's the benefit to the patron? Because this gets into the why. So for the safety of all of our customers, for the confidentiality of your information, to stop the potential spread of the virus, for the safety of our staff and community. So lead with the benefit. And I want that to just sink in with you a little bit. Lead with the benefit whenever you can. See, and this gets back into, in your communication, I want you to think about not just what and how with the customer, but I want you to think about why. And that's where benefit statements come into play. And they can be very powerful in de-escalating some of these difficult behaviors. So a reminder, consistency is the goal. We want every employee to be delivering similar messages. I want to know that management's got my back. So if I'm expected to deliver a message and the customer wants a supervisor or a manager or the director, I want to know that I'm supported. And then the other thing that I mentioned earlier that I'll talk about now briefly is a daily review of incidences, which means that you are filing reports and that those reports are discussed. Okay, this is not what the one looks like that I'm giving to you. It actually is two-parter with accident and incident. But if you are not using these, I think it's time. And it's time to have discussions. Remember, if you have multiple locations, this needs to be discussed with multiple locations. So here, if it happens in Waynesville, we need to talk about it in Canton. And we need to talk about it in Fines Creek. And we need to talk about it in Maggie Valley. If not, and we decide that based on a incident that we had with a customer, that this is how we are going to respond the next time it happens, and 3 of my locations don't have that information, we got a problem. So I want you to think about how that information is going to be passed around. Okay, what's one thing that you are going to apply that you learned in this program? I'm showing we're at the top of the hour, so our timing is pretty good. So in the comment area, would you please type in what's one thing that you're going to apply that either you learned from me or in the conversation, which was awesome that you guys were having in the comment area. So we'll look for your comments there, and I'm going to give you a reminder. And that is when you talk about this one thing that you want to apply, that you need to put it in action. And I just love this quote here. You start by doing it once. So if you're going to tell me that you really like unfortunately, and you're going to use unfortunately, then that means you're going to go out and do it. Never thought about sharing incident reports system-wide. Yeah. Yep, we need to. Because that behavior may show up at a different location. And then, how are we going to handle that? All right, so here's some of your comments. And they're coming in fast. Okay, setting boundaries, the did you know lead in, do you know because and why, starting with a benefit statement, holding staff accountable for modeling the behavior, did you know, be prepared, not scared. I like the last part, the questions for them, if you'd like to stay in the library. I like the benefits technique, keeping the why in mind. I like the benefits as well. So with your comments here, I want you guys to be thinking about when you're going to use it, how you're going to do it, what's your first approach, what's your first step. Did you know statements? Don't be sorry, it is what it is. It's unfortunate. Agreed, learning to focus on what we can offer rather than what we can't. Plan to read Covey again. Benefit technique and consistent responses from all staff. If you'd like to stay in the library, setting boundaries. I plan on sharing this with our director and supervisors. Sharing incident reviews across the system each day. I think it's going to become more important now, probably more than ever. Consistency. Good, I have Covey on my list of books. Love that. Also, an additional shout out for Don Miguel Ruiz. I just adore that book. Another one that's really helped me in life skills, not only in dealing with customers, but dealing with family, dealing with friends, dealing with situations on that. I've posted there my contact information if you have any questions that you didn't want to do in public forum, but you'd like to put out to me, please do. Also, we do offer, as Cassandra talked about, PCI does offer webinars, and we also offer some additional ones that you may want to check out. Or also, you can just check in at our, we have a constant contact newsletter where I put out information. You can check that out as well. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in. I do want to respect your time. I know we are at the top of the hour, but I just want to thank you, and I'll bring Cassandra in and we'll look for any questions and then we'll wrap it up. So thank you all very much. Please stay safe and well. That to me is the most important thing.
Yes, indeed. We'll give it just a little bit more time, make sure nobody else has any questions. We were getting a bit of a lag on when the questions were showing up. That's not normal. So I do want to make sure to give that plenty of time. And as Andrew mentioned, we do have the PCI webinars. We've actually got one coming up on diversifying your collection. So that's definitely one to look out for. And looks like we've mostly just got thanks rolling in now. So again, thank you all for attending. And if that is everything, we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. And it looks like it is. So thank you very much, Andrew. And thank you everyone for attending today. Remember, if you want more webinars, you can check out all of our events, including the PCI webinars at swanlibraries.org/events. Our webinars and PCA's webinars are available for archived viewing. So if you don't have the ability to watch them on the date or time offered, just make sure you register to receive the archive for later viewing. And thank you again, Andrew, and thank you all for attending today. And we hope you enjoyed today's presentation.